Welcome to Live Interactive English, and that is Matt.
And that is Shane.
We are looking at part 2 of why do some flags look alike. And in part 1, we learned quite a bit about, why some flags look alike based on...
Why they have the same colors based on which part of the world they're in.
Right.
Or, why they have maybe just 3 colors based on their history.
Yeah, okay. So what are some other interesting facts about flags?
Well, sometimes we use some idioms that use, flags in them. So the term red flag. So red flags usually mean danger in life. But if you're in the dating world and you're on a date, or you're seeing someone and they do something that makes you think that something's wrong, you might say that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Or you can say that's a red flag for me.
Right. Or a person who your friend or somebody be like, oh, wow, that sounds like a red flag. You better leave that guy alone.
Right. We also think of, when you want to catch a taxi, we can say that you flag down a taxi or flag down a bus. Just means to wave at them.
You're
so
waving
that
at them.
Stop for you.
Yeah. Another interesting flag fact. Did you know that there's actually a flag that isn't four-sided? Just one flag that isn't...
Not four-sided.
Yes.
So I don't know. What is that flag? Nepal.
Yeah, It looks kind of like this, kind of like 2 triangles.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty interesting. There's also 2 countries that have square flags. Otherwise, besides Nepal, they're all rectangles.
Okay. So which 2 countries have square flags?
That's Switzerland and the Vatican City.
Oh, okay. So both quite small countries, but they have
small ones, but they are interesting ones. Okay, so why don't we get into part 2 of why do some flags look alike?
Colonial clues. Having similar flags sometimes indicates historical ties to past or current colonizers. When the British Empire was at its largest, scores of flags around the world featured the Union Jack. Most former colonies redesigned their flags upon gaining independence from Britain, but some, like Australia and New Zealand, kept the Union Jack on theirs. Meanwhile, there are still 14 overseas territories that are controlled by the UK, and all but one, Gibraltar, have the Union Jack on their flags.
Welcome back. So today we're looking at part 2 of our article, Why Do Some Flags Look Alike? So we've already learned a few reasons why, some flags have the same colors or, the same kind of design, but we're going to learn some more now.
Okay, so the next topic here is colonial clues. Okay, so a clue is an object or a piece of evidence, or some information, usually that helps police solve a crime. But in this case, we're just trying to solve kind of like a puzzle. We're trying to figure something out. So a clue would be a piece of evidence that we could look for. An example sentence would be, the police looked for clues at the crime scene. Okay, so continuing along, having similar flags sometimes indicates historical ties to past or current colonizers. When the British Empire was at its largest, scores of flags around the world featured the Union Jack. So when we think of, Great Britain.
The Union Jack is that flag with several different crosses put together to make up the flag. So a blue background with a white diagonal cross and then a red cross going horizontally and vertically.
Right.
And that was actually on many flags. And in fact, Canada's old flag also featured that, as Canada was a part of the British Empire. Right? Most former colonies redesigned their flags upon gaining independence from Britain. But some, like Australia and New Zealand, kept the Union Jack on theirs.
Right. So you guys changed your flag, right?
Yeah, so Canada changed their flag once they became independent and chose a new flag. But yeah, you can see that Australia and New Zealand and actually many other countries still have the Union Jack in the corner of their flag.
Yep, a lot.
And that's because they were former colonies. So a colony is a country that is under complete political control of another country. So when we think of the British Empire, there were many colonies that did not have their own independence from the empire. They were a part of it and completely controlled by the government or the king or queen back in England.
Right.
So, for example, many countries around the world used to be French or British colonies.
So many, right? Meanwhile, there are still 14 overseas territories that are controlled by the UK, and all but one, Gibraltar, have the Union Jack on their flags. Right? So the UK still has quite a lot of control.
Right, so they still have these colonies, although most of them are quite smaller islands now.
Smaller islands now, yeah. Right. All right, so overseas, that's just an adjective, just meaning connected with foreign countries, especially the ones that are separated from your country by the sea or ocean. That's why we would say overseas. So for example, the company wanted to move into overseas markets. Right.
Okay, so we're talking about territories. So a territory is a piece of land that is controlled or owned by a country or by a government. So when we talk about these territories, we're actually talking about the colonies, but these are the pieces of land that are owned by any government.
Right.
So any country can have its own territory, meaning the land that it owns. Okay, so for example, the land on the other side of the river is Spanish territory. Okay, yeah, so it's interesting how so many of these flags still have the Union Jack. And I know that even, in New Zealand, they've actually had a vote a few times recently to see if they wanted to officially change their flag. Yeah, but the vote did not pass, so they've decided to keep their flag.
Interesting.
But one big reason why a lot of people want to change the flag is because it looks so similar to the Australian flag that people often don't recognize it as New Zealand, or even sometimes people use the wrong flag when they're making maps or other products.
Oh, that definitely is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。为什么有些国旗看起来很像呢？我们在第一天读到，可能是因为采用了常见的颜色，或者是采用了相似的设计要素。那么课文接着谈到第三个因素是殖民线索。拥有相似的这个国旗，有时候表明了跟过去或现在殖民者的历史联系。像在大英帝国鼎盛时期，世界各地许多国旗都有这个英国的国旗。那大多数的前殖民地在脱离英国独立之后，都重新设计了自己的国旗。不过有些国家像澳大利亚还有纽西兰，则是在自己国旗上面有保留了英国国旗。好，另外还有14个海外属地是由英国控制，除了直布罗陀之外，所有海外属地的国旗也都有英国的这个米字旗。文中它是用 Union Jack 来指英国国旗，其实它又可以称为 Union Flag。我们再来看到单字 clue 它表示线索或提示， colony 表示殖民地，它的相关词性有 colonial， 它是形容殖民的或殖民地主义的， colonizer 则表示殖民地开拓者或者是殖民者。再看到下一个单字 overseas， 它可以当形容词形容海外的，在国外的。那么 territory 则表示领土、属地或是领域。好，这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，那这边我们来整理一下 on 或是 upon 加上名词或动名词，逗号，主词加动词的句型。这个句型它表示一怎么样就怎么样，或者是在什么什么之后立即怎么样。 On 或是 upon 它们是当介系词用，后面是接名词或动名词，只是要注意在接动名词的时候，这个动作的主词必须跟搭配子句的主词相同，是同一个对象。那我们造2个例句。Upon arrival, he checked into the hotel. 他一抵达就去办理饭店住房手续。第2个例句是 On hearing the news, Haley began to cry. Haley 一听到消息就开始哭了。那例句里面的 on 后面是接动名词 hearing， 那这个动作的主词就是 Haley， 跟主要子句的主词是同一位对象，是同一个人。那我们直接回到课文中。
Coincidental copies. While many similarities in flags come from shared histories or values, sometimes they're entirely coincidental. The flags of Chad and Romania, for instance, use blue, yellow, and red in almost identical ways. Similarly, Poland, Indonesia, and Monaco all have flags that feature one red stripe and one white stripe. However, there are no other links between the flags. Of course, no two countries are exactly alike, but as flags can show, many nations have things in common. Therefore, flags remind us that though there are many differences between us, we are all part of one human story.
Welcome back. So before the break, we talked about one more reason why some flags look the same, and that's because of their colonial histories. So many flags that were part of the British Empire, have the Union Jack in the corner. And, at one point, almost all of the colonies of the British Empire had this on their flags, but most have changed it now.
A lot have gained independence since then.
Yeah, but Australia and New Zealand still have that, as do many of the overseas territories of Great Britain right now.
All right, so the next part we have is coincidental copies. Now, when you say something is coincidental, you just mean that it happens accidentally, not on purpose. So here we have copies of different flags that weren't purposely done that way. They just happen kind of accidentally, by coincidence. Right. While many similarities in flags come from shared histories or values, sometimes they're entirely coincidental.
Okay, so we're talking about similarities between these flags, and a similarity is a thing that is similar or is, alike the other thing. So it's like it. It's not completely the same, but it maybe reminds you of it, makes you think of the other thing. It looks the same, then it's similar. If it sounds the same, it's similar. So, for example, there are many similarities between the two films, as they were made by the same director.
Makes sense.
The flags of Chad and Romania, for instance, use blue, yellow, and red in almost identical ways.
Oh, so it's really difficult to tell them apart because the colors are used in almost identical ways. When you say something is identical, you mean similar in every detail. Right? So these are almost identical, right? So an example for identical would be your car looks identical to mine. So similar that you might not be able to tell them apart. Right. Similarly, Poland, Indonesia, and Monaco all have flags that feature one red stripe and one white stripe. However, there are no other links between the flags.
Oh, right. So they're all quite far. Those countries are not close in,
geography.
Geographically, they're not very close culturally either. So it's interesting that they've all just ended up with very similar flags.
Yeah.
Of course, no two countries are exactly alike. But as flags can show, many nations have things in common. Therefore, flags remind us that though there are many differences between us, we are all part of one human story.
Oh, now that's a very sweet ending, right? We're all just humanity.
All together.
We have a question here. What do you think? What is your favorite flag in the world?
So I think that the Welsh flag is pretty cool.
It is very
Due
cool.
to its red dragon that is in the middle. So
Big red dragon.
the Welsh flag, the flag of Wales, is white and green, but then has a red dragon in the middle, and it's because of an old story from those, King Arthur stories, where there was a red dragon which represented the Welsh people and how they would, reclaim their land from the English at that time.
That is super cool. My favorite flag also has a dragon.
What?
Yes, and it's the flag of Bhutan.
Okay.
And that has it's a really cool flag because it has orange and yellow and a white dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it looks really cool. Not a lot of flags have orange in them also. And the white dragon just kind of like the way that it mixes between the yellow and the orange, it just has it really pops out. It's really cool.
Okay, so we've decided that dragon flags are the coolest.
That's it. I mean, that's not up for debate. I mean, if you have a dragon on your flag, you pretty much win.
Okay.
All right, that's all the time we have for flags and what makes them so similar. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
虽然很多国旗的相似处是来自共同的历史或价值观，但有时候完全是巧合。像查德共和国和罗马尼亚的国旗是以几乎相同的方式来使用蓝色、黄色和红色。还有像波兰印尼还有摩纳哥，他们的国旗都有红色条纹和白色条纹，但这些国旗之间并没有其他关联。我们看看单字 similarity。这个名词它表示类似、相似处 ，identical 则是形容完全相同的、一模一样的。那补充单字 coincidental 它则是形容巧合的、碰巧的。还有 stripe 表示条纹。课文最后提到，没有两个国家是完全相同的，但就像国旗所显示的，许多国家之间都有共同点，所以国旗也提醒着我们，尽管彼此之间存在着许多差异，我们终究都是同一个人类故事里面的一部分。好，那这边有个重点，我们要进入文法时间。好，这边要介绍的是 have something in common， 表示有什么什么共同点或相似处，常常会用 A and B have something in common， 或者是 A have something in common with B 来表达 A 与 B 有什么什么的共同点。那我们造两个例句 ：Julie and I have a love of music in common。我跟 Julie 都热爱音乐。第二个例句是 Jake doesn't have many hobbies in common with me。Jake 跟我并没有太多共同嗜好。好，那么以上这些讲解，同学们别走开，马上回来哦。
Colonial clues. Having similar flags sometimes indicates historical ties to past or current colonizers. When the British Empire was at its largest, scores of flags around the world featured the Union Jack. Most former colonies redesigned their flags upon gaining independence from Britain, but some, like Australia and New Zealand, kept the Union Jack on theirs. Meanwhile, there are still 14 overseas territories that are controlled by the UK, and all but one, Gibraltar, have the Union Jack on their flags. Coincidental copies. While many similarities in flags come from shared histories or values, sometimes they're entirely coincidental. The flags of Chad and Romania, for instance, use blue, yellow, and red in almost identical ways. Similarly, Poland, Indonesia, and Monaco all have flags that feature one red stripe and one white stripe. However, there are no other links between the flags. Of course, no two countries are exactly alike, but as flags can show, many nations have things in common. Therefore, flags remind us that though there are many differences between us, we are all part of one human story.
Hey, Winnie, do you want to catch that new movie after work on Friday?
I have a deadline. Let's do next Thursday.
That sounds like a good plan.
It is time for some translations, and our topic today is suggesting keeping in touch or rescheduling. Okay, so the first phrase is 下次再约.
I will say we can date another day.
I think we can hang out next time.
Very good, yes. Or let's arrange another time. Okay, then we also have 我再跟你联络.
Let me call you later.
I will contact you next time.
Okay, very good. What have we learned today?
Today's translation topic is suggesting keeping in touch or rescheduling. The first phrase is, I need to take a rain check. Now this is a fun one. The origin of rain check comes from a baseball game. If a game is canceled or stopped due to rain, the organizer will give each audience a ticket that will allow them to come back for the game on another day. So this ticket is called a rain check. So to take a rain check or get a rain check is used when you need to reschedule or meet up another time. The next phrase is, I'm going to catch you later. Catch is a verb that means to capture or hold on to something or someone, especially when someone is leaving. You can use catch you later as a way of letting them know that you'll see them again or see them next time. And those are our translations for today. KiWi later!